there's a lot to see and do just within the house itself. And that's been a deliberate setup, as creating this experience of something quite different. And we try and create that feel, that sense of wow when people arrive at the house.
You're listening to the She Renovates podcast. You're listening to She Renovates, the podcast for women who want to renovate to create an income and a life they love.
Hello everyone. So it's Bernadette and I am back with another episode of She Renovates. So over the last few weeks we've been streaming into the group, and today I've got a very special guest. So as you would know, we've not long come back from the Wonder Women retreat in Hepburn Springs, and while we're away we did a property tour, and one of the properties we visited was an Airbnb that's run by Trevor and his partner Andrew, Trevor Salmon. And we were all so completely inspired by it. And so there's been a flurry of activity since we came back. And yesterday, one of our members actually secured a beautiful historical building, really purely on the strength of that visit. So you've really spurned a lot of creativity in our group. And so I wanted to actually bring Trevor into the podcast to really share the joy of Maggies with you and to delve a little bit into the strategy and the business model behind the property, because it really is an extraordinary property. So welcome, Trevor.
Bernadette, thank you very much.
Yeah.
A pleasure to have you in the group there back 4 or 5 weeks ago.
Yes, it certainly did make our day. And so before we get into the sort of nitty-gritty, can you just tell me a little bit about you and your partner Andrew? So what your background is?
Yep. Our background, Andrew's background is starting with floristry some years ago, and then moving into landscape design, and then from there into combining landscape design with interior design. And we often find the landscape client will want some interior work done, or vice versa. The interior design job may also turn into a landscape project, inside, outside, all sort of reflecting from there. My background is advertising and marketing over many years. So the combination of our skill sets, I guess, has set us up to do what we're doing, projects in Melbourne more for interior design. And we've got Maggies in Trentham as our project for accommodation venue.
Yeah, it's definitely a very unique venue. And so let's start at the beginning. How did you come by Maggies?
It wasn't planned. It was basically we'd moved a house in Melbourne from a double-storey Victorian house to an apartment. So accordingly, we had a lot of furniture left over, which went into storage, and we both collect along the way as well. So we had an abundance of furniture not being used. And we walked the house that we have now, we walked past one day. Now, we leased this house, and we'll talk about that more, I guess, from the Catholic Church. And walking past one day, it had a very small sign on the fence saying for lease. We looked at it and we thought, now that could be something worth looking at, re-accommodation. Trentham is near Daylesford, which most people may have heard of in Victoria, in the Macedon Ranges, a very popular area for weekend getaways, etc. And there were already 3 or 4 places we knew of in Trentham, this is going back about 4 years, available for accommodation. And we thought this could be an answer to what we're looking for. So we arranged to have a look at the house the following day. A little sceptical, thinking they probably need work doing inside, or it's not going to suit for some reason. But it had recently been renovated. It had been on the rental market for, I believe, about 6 to 8 weeks. It's a large house that now sleeps 10, but it was too big for, say, a family in the area to want to rent. And so it was there and available. and that started our negotiations to take it on board and open up an accommodation venue.
So I would imagine that there's a significant investment in setting a property up like that. What gave,
There is.
what gave you the confidence to actually take that leap?
I spoke to, there are 2 or 3 letting agents in Dalesford that specialise in looking after properties on behalf of clients for the getaway type accommodation. So I had a few meetings with those people and talked it through just to believe or to get the confidence that we were viable if we were going to open up and promote ourselves to that market. Dalesford's always been a more popular spot than Trentham. Dalesford's now extremely busy. And Trentham is becoming a destination in its own right, which it was doing probably 3 or 4 years ago anyway. And we piggybacked onto that culture, I suppose, into the town itself. Investment wise, now the renovation of the house, the bones of the house, had been done by the church. So our investment was to furnish it and to style it. We added light fittings. We added quite a few things over and above what work the church had done, and then added all of what we had. And needed to purchase more, like beds, of course. We have the availability of different markets around the area of Ballarat, Dalesford, Castlemaine, where we were able to buy more furniture and buy decorative pieces as well. But as a ballpark figure to set it all up, I believe we'd be talking somewhere between 40 and 50,000 to set that up into a working property.
So just before I respond, just if anyone is watching, well, for those who are watching, if you would like to comment, if you give StreamYard access, then we will see your name come up. So, okay, so yeah, that's a significant investment. So you would have felt reasonably confident to be heading down that path.
I also attached to that too, sorry, which is probably relevant, with our negotiation on leasing the property, we've taken a 9-year lease. So to amortise the cost of investment over that period and with anticipated income coming in, it didn't appear to be an outlandish investment, so to speak.
Yeah. So what was the source of the concept?
The property is a 5-bedroom Edwardian stroke Victorian home with a large veranda around it, typically built by the Catholic Church back at the turn of century. It was you could either go down the road of recreating that old style of home, which we sort of called Granny's house, which we didn't want. And so I think the way that the deliberate aim was to furnish it in such a way and to style it that it was quite eclectic. There's a whole mix of different things, as you would have seen when you were there. A lot of stuff, not easy to dust, but it gives a feeling of an eclectic culture of what's been set up, but also with the desire to give the guests an experience in a house like that. Very few would have ever stayed in a house of that size and of that look. It's got very high ceilings. And we know by reports back or reviews, and a couple of times we've had to be there when guests are arriving, they're overawed by it. They walk through, they're looking all around, and very often they'll grab a glass of wine, and as a group they'll walk through and just look at every room and pick out things. And they spend the weekend doing that. There's a lot to see and do just within the house itself. And that's been a deliberate setup, as creating this experience of something quite different. And that's reflected, as I say, in the reviews we get as well.
It was certainly my experience too. As I said to you on the day, I'd actually looked at the property on the website, and it's not until you go there that you really get the true magnitude of the opulence. And it's incredible. And you were talking about people, spending whole weekends there just exploring the house, and I really can imagine that happening because it is so I know eclectic's not quite the right word. It's it's I don't know what the word is, but anyhow, so yeah, that was. I have to apologise for my sidekick.
That's all
Um,
right.
so I think you've answered my next question was it always maximal, or did you build on it as you went? But did you get it all in that
No,
all done?
it's always been maximal in that sense of what we had. We have a house up there where we spend a lot of time as well. Little village called Lionville out of Trentham. That's decorated the same way, and our apartment in Melbourne is also pretty well decorated the same way as well. So it's a lifestyle factor, I suppose.
You must absolutely love dusting. Oh gosh, I just can't
Well,
imagine.
we have people who do help us, of course, with that as well. But Andrew is very particular of how the place looks, and we've been there now 4 years or more. He still insists on making up the beds. He irons all the sheets and the pillowcases, etc. That can be sent out to be done, but he insists on doing that, so that we do keep it at a very high level, and that again reflected in the reviews we get, and it's keeping the whole place looking pretty sharp, basically.
Look, I think that really demonstrates a point that because I've had a lot of Airbnbs, at, 10 at a time, I came to the point where I realised that you're better to have one and do it really, really well than try
Yeah,
and spread yourself too thin.
yeah. And
Yeah.
we try and create that feel, that sense of wow when people arrive at the house. They let themselves in. There's a key lock there. They're paid up through the agency. They arrive on a Friday, let's say, at 3 in the afternoon. And we always want them to walk into the lighting being on, not all lights, but all the standard lamps in the bedrooms are on. We have music playing, ABC classical music playing on the sound system, and of course the heating on this time of the year. So you walk into that very warm environment from the very beginning, which
Mhm.
again has been reflected in people's comments.
Absolutely. And can I just ask, so I know that you mentioned that you sourced a lot of your little bits and pieces
Yeah,
locally from, say, garage sales and knick-knack shops. How long did that take?
it's never ending. we're still we're still we're still buying stuff, whether we're using it or whether it's been something that more particularly Andrew likes, and it goes into storage for a while. It's a moving feast, I guess, in the sense that we just continue to collect.
Mm.
And of late, while we've been buying a fair bit of stuff from markets around the area, we're also now buying stuff online through Leonard Joel's antique dealers down here, and Angers and different places like that. And we really are. You can really buy stuff at good value. You know, um, Rarely do they go a lot above any estimated cost of what they might be sold for. So it makes it quite a viable buy for those things. And they always find a home somewhere. But
Yes.
one thing we also are very aware of, that if nothing is, fingers crossed, nothing to this stage after nearly 4 years has been broken or stolen that we know of. We're quite aware of. But anything that's out on display in the house, if it was broken or stolen, it's not got that sentimental or monetary value that we're going to be concerned about. We sort of make sure of that as well, just in our own mind.
Well, that's really awesome. Because, I would imagine if anything did get broken, and sometimes it happens, that it would be devastating for the perpetrator. And
Yeah,
yeah, so it's good. That's really good to know.
yeah. Look,
So,
and akin to that comment, very often when we go there after guests have stayed, as you may have seen on the day you visited, the beds are looking pretty amazing, and there'll be like 12, 14 cushions, pillows, whatever, layered. People try and make the bed back to how they found it, which we take as a recognition of their appreciation of what their weekend. They've enjoyed the weekend away, and they try and leave it as good as they can. So we've been really, I'm saying lucky, but I think people are just very conscious to appreciate what they're amongst for their 2 or 3 day stay, or if it's longer. as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
And so I noticed Louise is online, and so she is the Wonder Woman that I mentioned has just bought. I don't think she'll mind me mentioning, Louise, sorry if you do, that she's just bought a historic church in the Hunter Valley.
Oh,
And
okay. Fantastic.
so
Yeah.
it's a very special property. And so,
Brilliant.
so we've got you to blame for it, Trevor. And
Sorry, Louise.
and she's wondering how long it took to get regular income.
Good question. It was probably to get a uniform income, I guess I would say. The first 3-4 months were quieter than what we anticipated, even after having lengthy discussions with the agent who was looking after the letting of it for us. But after, I reckon within 6 months, we were seeing a sustainable income in the sense of, okay, we're going down the right path. This is the right direction. And then, sort of, by the end of the 12-month period, we were doing very well. We thought we believe we were doing very well. And the best marketing ever, of course, is word of mouth. And over the period of the last 4 years or so, we're now recognising we're getting return visits from the same people. And the beauty is that, maybe they came in a group of 6, so 2 have returned, and they've brought another 4 people. So it's getting exposure, snowballing exposure, for want of a better word, of a new market, by experience of being there. And again, we get the comments that we're definitely coming back. We have a family reunion, we've come here for Christmas, that kind of stuff. But yeah, to answer the question from the beginning, it's not a quick turnaround. I would expect to have to build into your financials that the first 3 months will be a little quiet. Again, in saying that, there is still the want to get out of the city in Melbourne to get to the Macedon Ranges. So that's a different environment to when we started as well. The demand is stronger than supply at the moment, still at the moment, as I understand it. So, it's a bit of a different environment. So it may well take off quicker than anticipated. But I would suggest, if there's a real estate agent or somebody specialising in that, I imagine it would be in the Hunter Valley, of looking to rent these places on your behalf, they would have, like we have with the houses, who is the name of the company we're with, they have links to about 5 or 6 different websites, including Airbnb, etc., that people can book through, or they can come straight to them and book directly.
That's interesting, because Louise actually has a property management business. So Louise,
Right.
That's another bow to add to your repertoire of skills. Yeah, that's great. Now, one of the things, so I was amazed that you allow children, and I was imagining our 3 ruffians roaring through those hallways with all that china around, and I don't know that I'm quite game to try it, but I definitely want to be a guest, so we're going to have to find a different family for that weekend. But do you have any recurrent problems with guests? Are there any things that are issues?
No, we really don't, to be honest. Some people use everything in the house, plates, knives and forks or whatever. That's fine. That's allowed. And occasionally they can be left a little bit untidy, but there's never been any great problem in that sense. So we've had no reports from neighbours of any wild partying as such. So it's been, I think we've been quite lucky. And maybe, again, it's just an appreciation of the property itself, because I know other properties around that are let out via Airbnb or whatever have had some issues in the past. But no, we've been fine on that basis. Mm.
Oh, that's great. And so I've come to my last question. How do you collaborate with local businesses, or do you collaborate?
Well, Trentham, as you may have noticed as you came through on the bus, is not a large village. And just by being there, we were there in the area nearly 2 years before setting up Maggies. So you do get to know the locals, be the retail market or others around as well. And they all know Maggies, and they always, very often when we might go into a coffee shop or post office anywhere, "Oh, we had people in who stayed at Maggie's last weekend. They had an amazing time. They absolutely loved the place." So it's nice to get that feedback, unheralded, unwarranted. It just comes by comment back through the people who are in town.
Yeah,
So they also promote to a degree. We also refer people to coffee shops and
yeah,
to caterers. There are a couple of caterers who've done work there with preparing a dinner party for people, and they will bring the food along prepared for the guests to serve, or they can go one step further and they'll incorporate staff, obviously at a cost, and also staff to stay and serve the food. So there've been a couple of those events where there's been like a 60th birthday, 50th birthday, whatever, and some people made it a pretty special event.
that's awesome.
Mm.
And yeah, and so I've got a few questions from the audience, and I know you did mention this before, but I will ask it because it may have been missed. Do you have a long lease?
We've got a 9-year lease, which was 3 by 3 by 3. When we took that out, we believed that was a good period of time to really set this up and make it work. And we had no indication at the time there'd be any problem to extend that lease after the 9 years if we want to.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
And so a second question is, does Airbnb have a problem with additional agents booking or renting the property out for you along with your booking directly with Airbnb? I'm not sure that you do. Do you list it directly with Airbnb?
No, we don't do it directly with Airbnb. It's that's through the agency in Dalesford.
Yeah.
They have the Airbnb as a link to their bookings.
Yeah.
I don't know that we get a lot of Airbnb bookings through them, to be honest. I don't have that breakdown. We do get a lot of direct bookings, when I say direct, to the agency directly more than through some of these links as well. I think it's a higher percentage. People go there directly. They'll Google accommodation, Trentham, whatever, and find what they have from there.
Yeah, that's good. And so I know you've answered this, but we will ask it again. How much did you spend to renovate?
It wasn't so much to renovate. The renovation had been done. It was setting it up. Probably we allowed about 40,000 in total to do that. Now, there's some of that it might sound a little expensive, but by the time you buy 3 king-size beds, 2 queen-size beds, you're soaking up a fair amount of cash straight away. We had to buy other dining tables and things like that. We chose to create the look. So, we searched and found for Murano light fittings. They weren't necessarily expensive. They were all secondhand. We bought them at the right time in the market. But, we've probably got 4 of those. So we paid, I'm thinking from memory now, about 2,500, nearly 3,000 for each one. And we'll take those with us whenever that time is right. But originally those lights were worth a lot of money. And they look pretty spectacular in the house. And it's been a worthy investment for the comments we get as well. People just are quite in awe of that look. It makes the room look pretty special.
I can vouch for that. And in actual fact, what I'll get Mikey to do is to slot in some of the video that I took while we were visiting so that the group can get a sense. Now, we've got a last question. I will make this the last. Madeline says, well, last 2. What do you wish you knew before you started? What advice would you offer to anyone wanting to Airbnb arbitrage?
Right. Good question. There's nothing that stands out, to be honest, that we haven't discovered the answer to, or what might have been a problem down the track at any stage. I think just be very sure if you're looking to lease a property, that all the details in the lease are what you want. We've not had any major drama there. There have been a few questions, recent maintenance issues, nothing that we can't overcome. And we're covered by the lease itself. Just be also aware that when we took the lease out, it took over 6 months. It was through the Catholic Church. It had to go through the parish. Then it had to go through the Archdiocese in Melbourne. I think the Pope may even ticked it off at the very end. But they recommended, and through all their conversations, that they were all happy and we could be happy with a residential lease on the property, because it was always intended to lease it out as a family home. And that wasn't the case. So us coming to them, talking about accommodation venue was very new to them, and very new, I think, to their people. It's working well. There's no problem with that, but it probably strictly should be a commercial lease, because you are operating a commercial business.
Yeah.
So just be aware when talking to estate agents, lawyers, or whatever, that you've got the correct documentation.
Yeah. That's great advice.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say once again, thank you very much for your generosity. I think, as you can see, we've got a fair amount of buzz around this topic, and we really appreciate you sharing your expertise. I will include the details of Maggies in the group, and along with the podcast, which will get published in a few weeks on YouTube and also on the podcasting platform. And so, so that hopefully more people find out about this beautiful property. So please give our regards to Andrew as well, and our thanks to you for your time, Trevor.
Pleasure, Bernadette. And if anybody is wanting to talk more about styling or whatever they might want to do, or would want some help to do, we're very happy to have a chat as well. I think you've got all the contact details.
We do, and I'm sure Louise will be jumping in, because she's the one that's most active at the moment. And
fantastic! Congratulations! It sounds wonderful.
Yeah, it does sound wonderful. It's a very exciting project. Okay, brilliant. Well, thank you, Mikey, in the background, for looking after us, and I'll say goodbye now. So thank you.
Good to be. Nice to chat.
Thank
Cheers.
you. Bye.
Bye.
If you want to meet up with a group of savvy renovating, I shouldn't say it's all women, because it's not, savvy renovators, I'll say, come over and join She Renovates. It's completely free Facebook group, and it is growing at the rate of knots. We hit 1,000 members just recently, and now it seems to have picked up momentum. And so they are all savvy renovating women and men that are working their little hearts out to live a better life through renovating. Join if you're not already a member, and then ask, comment, and do whatever you would like to do in order to further your renovation journey. And that's it for me today, so I'll see you next week.
This is the She Renovates podcast. To discover how to harness the power of renovating, check out theschoolofrenovating.com.